Hello everybody, welcome back to the Bad Bookers Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack and today we've got something very different for you. We've got a New Japan Pro Wrestling Wrestle Kingdom 13 review. My first full Wrestle Kingdom that I've watched live. I've catched some of the matches before, a couple of weeks after the event, but I've never watched the full Wrestle Kingdom live. And I don't think it was as good as previous Wrestle Kingdoms. It seemed very rushed at times, and it was still good. It was still very good, but it just felt rushed a little bit. I don't know if you'll agree. If you do agree, leave a comment. If you don't agree, leave a comment down below what you thought of Wrestle Kingdom, and while you're there, why not leave a like and subscribe. First up, we had the pre-show, which was the number one contendership match, Gauntlet Tag Team match for the Never Openweight 6-man tag belts. I'm not going to go too in-depth for it because I didn't write any notes down because it was 7 o'clock in the morning for me and I couldn't be asked to start some notes down for the pre-show. Usually there's a Battle Royale for the pre-show, but today this year they changed it up. And the winners were the Most Violent Players, or the MVPs, of Togi Makabe. I'm going to pronounce names completely wrong, by the way, because I don't watch New Japan that often, if ever, and I don't know how you really say the name. So Togi Makabe and Toriyani, who seems quite popular, Toriyano, and Raizuka Taguchi, as they defeated Nakata, Jeff Cobb, and David Finlay, the team of Chaos, which was Goto, Beretta, and Chucky T, Suzuki Gun, which was Moro Suzuki, Lance Archer, and Davey Boy Smith, and the team of the Elite, which was Hangman Page, Takahashi, and Marty Scurll. It was an okay. It was the second longest match of the night, surprisingly. You can see why it was rushed. But yeah, they won. They'll have their match tomorrow against, I believe, Bullet Club. Are they the 6-man tag champions at the moment? I'm not too sure. But they'll have their match tomorrow night to see the winners of that. Next up, we had the first match of the main show, 8 o'clock in the morning for me. And I don't know if I've ever watched wrestling at 8 o'clock in the morning and not watch a good match like this in Kota Ibushi versus Will Ospreay for the Never Openweight Championship, which any weight division can compete against. Obviously, Will Ospreay is transforming from junior heavyweight to heavyweight, and Kota Ibushi is already a heavyweight. The early goings were determined by Kota Ibushi. He managed to get on top just to, show a bit of, he's a heavyweight. Will Ospreay is a junior heavyweight, effectively, even though he's put on a bit of muscle gain. Commentary were really putting over the fact that Ospreay had idolised Kota Ibushi and kind of moulded his moveset around what Kota Ibushi had done. There were some cracking sequences involved in it. Back and forth were really good, as you expect from a match between Kota Ibushi and Will Ospreay. At one point, Ibushi goes to the top rope, but gets caught by Ospreay, and Kota Ibushi's like hanging. He's got his leg caught. He's hanging down, upside down from the rope, and they were both just slapping the piss out of each other, to put it politely. But then, even though he was hanging upside down, Kota Ibushi still managed to get on top of Ospreay before Ospreay just, thought, you know what, sod this, and started just kicking Kota Ibushi in the face. While he was hanging upside down. You can't let a man who's hanging upside down beat you. They then, Will Ospreay then went up to the top rope with Kota Ibushi, turned him round, and kind of like pushed him forward a little bit, and Kota Ibushi smashed his face off the top of the ring post and busted his nose open proper badly. He was bleeding a fair bit from his nose. Ibushi manages to get out of it. Will Ospreay was going to go for a suplex, but he gets out of it and hits the stomp on Will Ospreay from the top rope while he's like hanging off, basically. Looks brutal as anything. He then goes for his own superplex from the top rope, but Will Ospreay manages to roll out of it. They went for it, he rolled out of it. Shades of what happened in their match earlier in December. And then the camera work once again, where Ospreay's looking back behind him, looking at Kota, and Kota Ibushi's just stunned at what's happened. So lovely throwback to that match. Another Oscutter was Will Ospreay attempted one earlier in the match, but it got reversed even into a straightjacket suplex, which looks quite brutal. Ospreay then gets back onto the upper hand, and he kicks Kota Ibushi right into the back of the head, which wobbles Kota Ibushi, and then one of the stiffest elbows I've ever seen to the back of Kota Ibushi's head. I hope he's alright. He did get taken out on the stretcher, but that was the end of the match. A stormbreaker from Will Ospreay after the elbow, and Will Ospreay is the new never openweight champion, beating Kota Ibushi. And like I said, Kota Ibushi going out on the stretcher. Hopefully it's just a work, but that elbow did look quite brutal. Next up, we had the junior heavyweight tag team championship match between the Roppongi 3K, LIJ, and Suzuki Gun. I'm not a fan of three-way tag matches. I've never have been. I probably never will be. They just seem a bit too messy for me, and this was kind of the same. There was a lot going on, but not a lot going on, if that makes sense. It's just too many cooks, in my opinion. It was also hard to follow what happened in the Kota Ibushi Will Ospreay match, and it showed that for me anyway. I'm sure people did love it, but for me, I didn't quite get the buzz about it. LIJ picking up the win after Taiji pins, I believe it was Yo of Roppongi 3K with the last falconry to become the new junior heavyweight tag team champions. Next up, we had a match for the Rev Pro British Heavyweight Championship between the challenger Zack Sabre Jr. and the champion Tomohiro Ishii. It was a very good match, as all Zack Sabre Jr. matches are. I've thoroughly enjoyed myself in this one. Early submission games from Zack Sabre Jr., as always, as you expect, just technical brilliance. He kept on playing with the Stone Pitbull Ishii, and that was riding up Ishii, no end. And Zack Sabre Jr. just kept on getting the upper hand, kept on keeping the momentum from Ishii. No matter how hard Ishii tried, Zack Sabre Jr. would always end up on top with a slick submission move or something like that. Zack Sabre Jr. applied an ankle lock, but Ishii managed to roll through it and apply his own ankle lock onto Zack Sabre Jr. And that was the first bit of momentum that Ishii got. Ishii then hit a superplex onto Zack Sabre Jr., but that was the end of his momentum after Zack Sabre Jr. held the arm on after the suplex, no-sold the superplex, quickly trapped Ishii's arm into his legs and went down on it, breaking Ishii's arm, and it looked good. And then after that, it was just Zack Sabre Jr. working on Ishii's right arm and doing some brutal things to it. Another lovely sequence happened with Zack Sabre Jr. on top, and it ended up being a rolling pile driver, which looked like it was done to perfection. Both men working incredibly hard to get that, but it ended with a 2.9 count. And I'm sure that was it, but we had a lot more to come, and the end did come with a couple of near falls, a couple of guillotines, but then Zack Sabre Jr. hit like a double octopus submission hold, and Ishii's limbs were all like one arm was pointing over there, one arm was pointing over there, leg was over at the back of the room. It was mental, and there was no way out of it for Ishii, and he did indeed tap out. And Zack Sabre Jr. is the new Rev Pro British Heavyweight Championship. 3 title matches, 3 title changes. Keep that in mind. Next up, we had another triple threat tag team match, this time for the heavyweights tag team titles between the Gorillas of Destiny, Bullet Club, Tama Tonga and Tangaloa, versus Young Buck, Matt and Nick Jackson versus LIJ of Sonada and Evil. Start of the match sees Tama Tonga tries to, they're calling him the good guy now. He's the good guy. He's trying to shake hands with Nick Jackson, with Matt Jackson, obviously all part of the Bullet Club together. Obviously now Matt and Nick have split with the Elite. Tama Tonga, they weren't shaking Tama Tonga's hand. Tama Tonga, shakes the referee's hands. He's showing that he's a good guy. He goes over to Evil, I believe it was, goes to shake his hands, and Evil shakes his hands. Obviously, that's the tag. Tama Tonga goes, "Oh shit," and gets thrown out the ring. And Evil then goes after Matt Jackson and goes to the ramp and clotheslines Matt Jackson. The ramp was quite long, as it always is in New Japan from what I've seen. And he ran from pretty much the start of it right to the end and clotheslined Matt Jackson onto the ramp, obviously exploiting a bit of Matt Jackson's injured back from previous, I believe it might be in the previous Wrestle Kingdom he injured his back. I might be wrong there, but he's still got a bit of issues with that back, Matt Jackson. He sold it very well. The match was picking up a little bit. Sanada goes for some sort of rampage over the top rope where he hit Tama Tonga, like standing over the top rope, dive, hit Tama Tonga, hit Tangaloa, hit Matt Jackson, I believe, and then hit both Matt and Nick Jackson in one. Just kept on going in and out, in and out, in and out. Sanada looked like an absolute star in this match. I need to see more of this guy because he looks awesome. He looks absolutely awesome. There was a massive Tower of Doom, including everyone except for Nick Jackson, who Tower of Doom happened. Sanada was the only one that was really stationary, lying down in the ring, if you will. Nick Jackson instantly onto the rope, 450 splash onto Sanada, but it wasn't the end there. After Evil and Sanada hit a Magic Killer onto Matt Jackson, and then Sanada hitting a moonsault also onto Matt Jackson, and picking up the win and the titles for LIJ. Sanada and Evil are your new IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions. Goodbye the Elite, have fun in AEW. Will Bullet Club retain their titles anytime soon? Next up, we have the IWGP United States Championship match between the champion Cody Rhodes and the challenger Juice Robinson. Before the bell, Cody tries to hit Juice with the title, but Juice manages to dodge it, and despite some heelish tactics from Cody, Juice manages to stay on top of Cody Rhodes. Juice Robinson then goes to the top rope while Cody Rhodes is lying there, and Brandy Rhodes goes and covers Cody, be like, no, you can't jump on him because I'm here, basically. Juice Robinson gets down, tells her to jog on, basically, and she's there like, come on, hit me right here, come on, hit me, you know you want to, hit me. That was enough of a distraction for Cody Rhodes to go to the outs, onto the apron. Brandy then hopped out the ring, Juice followed Cody, and Cody got the upper hand. There was another distraction not too long after this, where Cody was like hugging the ref in the corner, and Brandy managed to spear Juice Robinson and started to lay into him. The ref turned round, caught Brandy doing this, kicked Brandy out. Didn't call for a DQ, just kicked her out. This is what I liked about New Japan. There was a lot of things getting let go, especially in this match. Brandy Rhodes getting caught, you know, spearing and hitting Juice Robinson, but the ref just kicked her out. Didn't DQ, just kicked her out. But this didn't distract Cody too much, as he turned around to Juice and hit a crossroads onto him for a 2.9 count. Soon after that, there was another crossroads attempt by Cody Rhodes, but Juice managed to reverse it into his own crossroads for another near fall, and it was starting to heat up now. It's starting to get there. And then Cody manages to, usually wears like a weightlifting belt kind of thing, took that up, whips Juice Robinson around the back with it, and he was thinking, oh, this could go on for another good 5-10 minutes. Match just ended there. Juice hit a flurry of fist strikes and then a pulp friction, hit another one, and then that was the end of the match. It felt very rushed. This was the start where I was like, okay. I didn't really enjoy that match. It was a bit weird, like 2 out of the 4 matches, or 4 or 5 matches I've enjoyed. The rest have been like the 2 triple threats. That's just my preference. I don't like triple threat tag team matches. And then the Rev Pro title match was good. Kota Ibushi and Zack Sabre and Will Ospreay even was good. This match was incredibly rushed. I don't know why there just wasn't a spark. There just wasn't anything there. But Juice Robinson is your new IWGP United States champion. And Cody, once again, joining the Young Bucks in All Elite Wrestling, as we knew already. Next up, we had the IWGP Heavyweights, Junior Heavyweights Championship even, between Kushida and Ishimori. Once again, I thought this match would be longer, but it was only about 11 minutes, I think. It was a very short match for a New Japan standard match. I don't know if that's just like we all expect long matches from New Japan now, and this match had quite a lot of short matches. So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I was expecting too much from it. I'm not too sure. But Ishimori started the match very well. He kept Kushida grounded, kept applying submission moves and whatnot. But every now and again, Kushida would, manage to get out of the flow of the match and start hitting his moves, start picking up the pace. But then Ishimori would jump straight back in, slow the pace right down, hit another submission move and whatnot. Kushida manages to get some offense in onto the Bone Soldier Ishimori, but Ishimori manages to hit a tombstone, a double knee face breaker, which looked quite brutal. He's been trying it a couple of times in the match, manages to hit it, and then not soon after that, Ishimori hit the bloody cross onto Kushida to pick up the win and becoming your new IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. Still not a successful title defense. Will that be changed anytime soon? We got to the final 3 matches now, and this was only about an hour and a half, 2 hours into the main show, which was mental. I was told to expect 6-7 hour show. To be a couple of hours into the show and we're into the final 3 matches, I was like, oh, okay then. Bit weird, but we had Jay White versus Okada, the leader of Chaos versus the leader of Bullet Club, who had betrayed Okada when he left Chaos to join the Bullet Club. Okada came out unexpectedly as the Rainmaker, trunks and all. The crowd, it was the biggest pop from the crowd all night. Money raining from the skies. When he took his robe off to show the trunks, the crowd went mental. They were loving every minute of Okada as Rainmaker, and that gave him the momentum to start the match strongly. He started the match strongly, but it wasn't too long until Jay White picked up the momentum, and he grabbed Okada on the outside, started bashing him against the barricade and the apron, just back and forth between the two, and just targeting the back throughout the early stages of the match. After some exchange of slaps and some filler bits, like some normal hits and whatnot, Okada once again picked up the advantage into the match, hitting a DDT for a near for 2.5 count, let's say, and then puts Jay White up onto the top rope, hits a drop kick on him. Jay White falls from the top rope onto the apron, onto the outside. Looked like a nasty fall, looked like he might have tweaked his knee, but he didn't, luckily, and he managed to carry on with the match. Jay White's manager, G.O.D, obviously a man who's trained Okada in the past, then strikes Okada from behind, and Okada no-sold it. It looked like the weakest strike anyway. Threw both Jay White and G.O.D over the barricade, and then runs back to the other side, runs across, and hits a jump-in dive over the barricade onto both Jay White and G.O.D, and that really popped the crowd at this point. The match then spills back into the ring, and Jay White's starting to get on top again. He's starting to just add a bit more submissions into there. He then directs G.O.D to do something. G.O.D places a chair inside the ring, goes to the other side, distracts the ref, and Jay White picks up the chair, goes to hit Okada with it, but Okada moves out the way, pushes Jay White into G.O.D, drop kick again. It looks like Okada's winding up to get his Rainmaker in there. But every time he would get his Rainmaker, Jay White would reverse it somehow into his own little style. There's a nice little sequence where they both kept on going for finishers and whatnot, signature moves, but they just kept reversing it. No one could get the other upper edge. And then Okada managed to hit a clothesline, not quite a Rainmaker, just a clothesline, onto Jay White. And it looked like he was about to win, but another Rainmaker attempt gets reversed by Jay White into a Blade Runner, finally hits the Blade Runner. 1, 2, 3. Jay White picks the win over Okada, and I think they said he's now pinned Okada, Omega, and Tanahashi. Well, he's pinned Omega and Tanahashi in 2018. He started 2019 beating probably one of the best New Japan wrestlers ever in Okada. So it's a great start for him, and it's a great start for Bullet Club, other than G.O.D losing. After that match only got 15 minutes, by the way. That still wasn't a long match. which is mental because, WWE 15-minute match is kind of accepted. In New Japan, a 15-minute match, like, I was looking through Twitter, everyone was like 15 minutes for Jay White and Okada. Are you mad? That's stupid. Are we just expecting too much from New Japan? And are they trying to change things up now and fans just aren't quite on board with it yet? I'm not too sure, but we started out with my match of the night. Naito versus Chris Jericho. No disqualification match for the IWGP Intercontinental Championship. This match was incredibly good. Before the match could even start, Naito attacks Chris Jericho before he could even enter the ring while his entrance is still going on. Attacks him, drags him up the ramp, instant pile driver on the ramp, and the match has got up to the quickest starts you could ever think of. The ref rings the bell. He was like, they're not both going to get the ring. Let's get the bell rung. Well done, ref. A sensible ref. Rings the bell, and they carry on fighting around the outside of the ring for a little bit longer. They get back into the ring, and Naito exposes one of the turnbuckles. There was a bit of back and forth. Naito then dumps Jericho back out the ring, fakes to go to attempt a suicide dive, and then goes to attempt a suicide dive, but that gave Chris Jericho enough time to get a kendo stick from under the ring and just smack him as he went for the suicide dive with the kendo stick. And that was the story of the match for the next couple of minutes, just Chris Jericho smacking Naito with the kendo stick, and just every time he would go get up, another kendo stick to the back or something. Jericho then leads Naito out of the ring over into the commentary area, or the press line, or whatever they called it, and puts Naito onto the table, onto the English, I think it was the English announce table, and lays a brutal looking DDT onto the table. Obviously, it's a Japanese table. It didn't break. There was a couple of breakage of tables, to be fair, but this time it didn't break. Apparently, there was a hole left in it, but it was such a brutal looking spike DDT. If you've got time, watch the match. But if you haven't got too much time, go to Twitter, try and search this. It was just brutal looking. I don't know how Naito walked away with that without a concussion or a broken neck, but it looked insane. Chris Jericho then decided, match is over, I'll ring the ring bell, start celebrating like, yes, I've won, fair play to me, I am still your champion. The ref's like, come on, get back in there, grabs Chris Jericho's hands. Chris Jericho goes to lift his arm up, the ref's like, no, what are you doing? And then Chris Jericho gets back into it and still lays in onto Naito, and Naito can't quite get into the match again. Jericho manages to lock in the walls of Jericho a couple of times during this match, but the second time he managed to get it, Naito managed to pick up the kendo stick that was left there beforehand and managed to start beating Chris Jericho on it. Obviously, Chris Jericho letting go of the walls of Jericho, and Naito finally getting control of the match with the kendo stick, giving a bit of revenge for what Chris Jericho did earlier in the match. Naito then goes for a baseball swing with the kendo stick, hits Chris Jericho in the gut, but goes for another one. Chris Jericho ducks it and then hits a code breaker onto Naito. 1-2, kick out at 2.9. The match was really starting to heat up now. Jericho thought it was best then to introduce up to 8 chairs, I believe it was, into the ring. Goes to powerbomb Naito onto them, but Naito manages to reverse it, hits a DDT onto the chairs. It looks brutal. The chairs in Japan are weirdly look more brutal than WWE chairs. Not much given them, let's say. And DDT onto the chairs from Naito to Chris Jericho. And then after that, Naito hits his own code breaker onto Chris Jericho. And 1, 2, 2.9, Chris Jericho manages to kick out of a code breaker, and Naito's thinking, what can he do now? What can he do now? Naito decides it's best to go up to the top rope, but as he turns around on the top rope, a flying chair, which Chris Jericho has thrown out of nowhere, flung at Naito. Naito falls off the top rope. Codes breaker from Chris Jericho, but once again, Naito kicks out of it. Chris Jericho at this point has had a bit of enough, and he goes out to the ring, grabs the title, and starts to charge up, telling Naito to get up, goes to run at Naito with the belt, but Naito picks him up, drops him into the exposed turnbuckle that was there from before, and then hits the Destino onto Chris Jericho, but Chris Jericho kicks out of that, and then Naito picks up the belt, hits Chris Jericho with it, hits another Destino, and 1, 2, 3. Tetsuya Naito is your new IWGP Intercontinental Champion. We got one match to go. That is the main event. Every title has changed hands. Can Kenny Omega keep the title around his waist? Like I said, next up was the main event, IWGP Heavyweight Championship time. The champion, Kenny Omega, versus the challenger, Tanahashi. Tanahashi obviously winning the G1 Climax, beating Kota Ibushi in the final, getting the briefcase to get the main event of Wrestle Kingdom, facing Kenny Omega in what was a very good match, surprisingly. Like I said, next up we got the IWGP Heavyweight Championship match between Kenny Omega, the champion, and Tanahashi, the challenger. This match starts off a little slow. It was kind of like a dick measuring contest, if you will, slapping each other. But Tanahashi still manages to get the upper hand on Kenny Omega, slowing the match down a little bit more, putting submission holds in and whatnot. But Kenny manages to get out of the submissions and they start slapping each other again. It's a bit weird, but Kenny starts to gain control of the match. The match spills to the outside of the ring, and Kenny slams Tanahashi over the barricade onto the Japanese announce table, taking out one of the Japanese announcers, and then Kenny hits a nice looking moonsault off the barricade onto Tanahashi, standing up, lifting the arm of the Japanese commentator who's got knocked down, and then they get back into the ring. Or before this, Kenny Omega set up a table with the Young Bucks. Obviously, Tanahashi beforehand has said that a wrestling match should be determined in a wrestling ring, not being put through tables and whatnot. Kenny sets up a table. Tanahashi manages to stop him, looks at the table, baits to go into put Kenny Omega onto the table, but quickly reverses round, throws Kenny into the ring. But it wasn't too long before Kenny chucked Tanahashi outside the ring, goes for his Terminator suicide dive thing, but it looked brutal because Tanahashi didn't manage to catch him properly, and Kenny just landed so hard on the ramp. Just ow. That's all I could say, ow. It looked horrendously bad. Luckily he was okay. Back into the ring they go. A V-trigger from Kenny Omega. Then the You Can't Escape, is that the move that he does? He does it, but then the knee tweaks of Kenny Omega, and that gives an opening to Tanahashi to start picking at the injured knee of Kenny, hitting a dragon screw onto him, and then they both went to the top rope at some point. Tanahashi hits a dragon screw on there, and it looked like every ACL, every ligament would just pop out of Kenny Omega's knee. Luckily it didn't. Tanahashi then applies the cloverleaf onto Kenny's already injured leg, and it was about 30 seconds, a minute into the hold. Kenny Omega manages to get out, but doesn't get out quite enough, and Tanahashi grabs him, just waits there a second while Kenny Omega's hanging upside down while he grabs his legs, hooks the arms. Tanahashi hits a Styles Clash onto Kenny Omega. 1, 2, kick out, 2.5. The crowd pops for this hard. They love to see the Styles Clash, especially on Kenny Omega. It's a little bit cheeky of Tanahashi to do that. Obviously, Kenny Omega had done it before at Wrestle Kingdoms, maybe. I believe he might have done it to AJ at some point. He definitely did it to Okada, I believe. But to Tanahashi to do it to Omega, that just seemed something that shouldn't be happening. After the Styles Clash, Tanahashi went up to the top rope, goes for the frog splash, but Kenny Omega at the last second managed to get his knees up. Brutally, Tanahashi landed on the knees, right on the point of the knees it looked. Don't know how he didn't get injured at that point, but it just looks brutal, and it wasn't too long until Tanahashi managed to get the upper hand again on Kenny Omega. It was a real back and forth match, but Tanahashi just kept on getting the upper hand somehow on Omega. And then Kenny Omega stepped outside onto the apron, but Tanahashi managed to catch him. Once again, he's still in control of the match, manages to catch Omega's injured legs while he was caught up in the ropes. Another dragon screw onto Kenny Omega's legs. He's really taken damage onto that knee now. Tanahashi then hits a sling blade onto the apron of the hardest part of the ring, and then notices that the table's still there from when Kenny Omega set it up earlier in the match. Puts Kenny onto the table, goes to the top rope, thinks about it, and then goes for the frog splash. Kenny moves out the way. Tanahashi hits really, really hard through the table, and just brutal looking. The table just, luckily it broke. It did. Luckily it broke, but if it didn't break, I can imagine the injuries. But luckily he wasn't too hurt, or he kept it well hidden, and he carried on the match. A couple of minutes have passed, and Tanahashi's really starting to hulk up now. He's starting to no-sell moves. He's kicked out. Kenny Omega did a frog splash of his own. He kicked out at one. The V-trigger was hit. He managed to stay on his feet, kind of went down to one knee. Kenny Omega hit another V-trigger, manages to get Tanahashi down. Couldn't quite hulk up properly. Not yet, anyway. A few more minutes have passed. Kenny Omega hits the stiffest V-trigger I think I've ever seen. I can't remember a stiffer V-trigger. Right onto the jawline of Tanahashi while he's hanging off the ropes. Goes for the one-winged angel, but Tanahashi manages to reverse it into a reverse Rana. He just starts hulking up again, and he hits splash onto a standing Omega. Then hits another frog splash onto a laid out Omega. 1, 2, another 2.9 count. They're really throwing the false finishes in here. A dragon suplex from Kenny makes Tanahashi land on his throat. He kind of over-rotated a little bit. That was a dragon superplex off the top rope. Momentum then switched back to Kenny once again. He goes for another V-trigger, hits Tanahashi right on the jaw. Once again goes for the one-winged angel. Thought this was it. This is Kenny's moment. Another reversal from Tanahashi. Another sling blade. That was enough to keep Kenny Omega on the floor. Tanahashi goes up to the top rope. Another frog splash onto Kenny Omega. And Tanahashi wins the IWGP Heavyweight Championship from Kenny Omega. Now, is Kenny Omega staying in New Japan? Is he going to AEW? Is he going elsewhere? We don't know at the moment. I certainly thought he was going to stick around in New Japan, keep the title for a little bit longer. But apparently not. Tanahashi is your new champion, and every single title has changed hands. A complete rebrand, I guess you can say, of New Japan. Completely new champions going into tomorrow's New Year's Dash.